No, welcome to this new series that we're starting. It's called Visionary Voices. This is a new event series from Purdue Engineering, and what we're trying to do here is to invite visionary, inspiring figures who have made a big difference. My name is Arvind Raman. I'm the John A. Edwardson Dean of Engineering here at Purdue University. And let me tell you a little bit about our guest tonight. She is a Boilermaker engineer. She is an alumna of the Edwardson School of Industrial Engineering. There you go. All right, I can see all you IEs there. I can see all of you there. No, this is great. And she is the CEO of Pacific Gas and Electric, which is one of the largest electric utilities in the country, which serves 16 million customers with 23,000 employees. And its transmission grid is more than 100,000 miles long, stretching all the way north, Eureka, California, Northern California, to Bakersfield in Southern California, north to south, and then from the Pacific coast all the way to Sierra Nevada. So it's really an amazing, amazing enterprise. Will you please join me in welcoming Patti Poppe, CEO of Pacific Gas and Electric.
Well, good evening, Purdue. Nice to be home. There's some industrial engineers in the house.
Yeah, I think you need more energy. Yeah. Good evening, Purdue. There you go. Nice. Well, welcome to Visionary Voices, Patti. And how does it feel to be back on campus?
I love coming back home. It's just so many great memories. I'm afraid I'm not going to get to Harry's this time, but there's always the next time.
There's always Harry's, indeed. Patti, you've had a storied career since you left Purdue, 15 years at GM, and you rose through the ranks. You ended up managing the facility in Ohio, that is Lordstown facility, which is the largest manufacturing facility that GM has. And you ended up also being recognized in the Automotive Hall of Fame, and you got inducted there too, and then went on to DTE, to the energy business, and then to CMS, where you rose through the ranks and became president and CEO. And in doing so, you took the company from being lowest in customer satisfaction to the highest. And then 2021, PG&E comes calling, taps you for a CEO at a time that most people would say was a very difficult time for the company. Exiting a bankruptcy, increased forest fires, wildfires going on, and really a critical need for investment in equipment, new equipment, infrastructure. One might say this is the perfect storm to walk into. And yet, on day one, you announced to the world that leading with love was going to be key to the transformation of the company. So, what does leading with love mean to you, Patti? And how do you reconcile that with the hard-nosed, tough decisions you need to be taking as a CEO every day?
Well, first of all, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. Leading with love is essential, I think, in business. I think if more businesses led with love, we might have a kinder world. And knowing the challenges that PG&E had been through, I felt like healing was going to be required. And I wanted my team to know that they were valued. They had been faithful stewards, and some horrible, devastating things happened. And we had to learn from that. And we needed to regroup and become the company that our customers and our communities both deserved and were demanding. And so I knew that heart was essential. I've had the unfortunate experience of having to attend funerals of fallen coworkers who died on the job. And in fact, when I arrived at PG&E, we were losing a coworker on the job every 90 days. And when I would attend that funeral, there would be this incredible outpouring of love and expressions, open expressions of love for the fallen and their family. And in my estimation, it was too late. That's not the day to demonstrate the love for a coworker. It's on the day when they're about to do something that will harm them or someone else. And we had to change the culture. And so there's no doubt that measurement and data are very near and dear to my heart. I like to say I lead with equal measures, heart and head. But on the heart side, we needed people to see that there are consequences of their decisions. And I can tell you, 4 years in, I'll tell you 2 measurements, because we do measure these things. We take a joy survey every year, and in the joy survey, we ask 4 questions. Are you enjoying? Do you enjoy working at PG&E? Are you known? Are you loved? And are you proud? And I can tell you 21,000 people filled out that survey this year, and over 54% of them said they were felt loved at work. And so that's an interesting statistic. How blessed for one to be loved doing what they were born to do and is making a difference in the world. And I will say, the other data point that I would suggest is most meaningful is, I can tell you today, we've gone 730 days without a fatality on the job. So you can do, yeah, thank you. Correlation, causation, we can have a whole discussion about that. And my stats friends will love to do it, but I think there's a correlation.
So love saves lives.
Love saves lives.
Wow, that's incredible. It was a philosophy, I think, that really grabbed the headlines and made everyone rethink what corporate leadership can be, ought to be, and thank you for showing the way there. Going back to your initial days at Pacific Gas and Electric, amongst the many challenges you faced, one that really I think grabbed the attention of the world was your approach to dealing with wildfires and countering them and making the grid more reliable. In particular, the effort to underground 10,000 miles of transmission line has been hailed as the nation's most ambitious and innovative approach to dealing with that problem. Would you walk us through, if you will, through what problem were you trying to solve? What challenges were faced, and how did you solve it?
Yeah, it's so interesting because what's old is new again. I do remind people all the time. All of our gas lines are underground. Why is that? Some policymaker and utility executive 100 years ago decided they were safer underground. And I run a gas company and an electric company, and it's let's learn from ourselves. So that was one thing. But I think one of the most consequential drivers to our decision to really take a stand, to rethink our infrastructure, it was clear the conditions were changing and getting more extreme in terms of weather conditions and wildfire risk. We have a course that we teach at PG&E called Breakthrough Thinking, and we teach people that every great innovation is born out of somebody having the first bold idea and then taking a stand for that idea. And so we've just finished a 4-day workshop with all of my officers. It was early days. And I had a lawyer come to me after they'd done this 4-day workshop learning that anything was possible. Like, what is true? At one point somebody had to say the world was round. Like, somebody had to say there's such a thing as gravity. Somebody, had to invent all the things that all the great Purdue engineers have ever invented. And my lawyer came to me and said, Patti, we have to bury the lines. I was like, oh, brother, that's too big an idea. He's like, no, you taught me. I took the class. And I'm telling you, I've been representing this company. I have extreme knowledge of the risks that we face, and we have to get those wires out of the air. There's not enough trees to be cut. There's not enough clearance to be made. You cannot eliminate the risk in some of the places in our service area. And so we held a summit, a breakthrough summit. We brought the engineers and the regulating team and the permitting team and the finance team, and we brought them all together. And we said, what would have to be true? Now, this is, I think, something you should write down. The magic question. This is a magic question that unlocks breakthrough thinking. And what would have to be true to bury 10,000 miles of lines in this case? All of a sudden, these incredible engineers, I bet some of them were from Purdue, start pulling out of these files that they had. They're putting up all these studies that they've been reading, that they knew that we could do it, but they were afraid to be the one to say it because they thought that they would be rejected. So you create this environment where these ideas can flourish. And this idea flourished, and fast forward maybe 3 months later. And so we had internally taken the stand, like we saw an eye that we could do this. We were doing it in Paradise, where we had experienced a horrible, devastating campfire, and we were burying them for half the cost that we had done in any other place. So we had already innovated the cost solutions. And we said, okay, let's do it. Well, fast forward, the Dixie Fire started in July of 2021, about a mile from where the campfire had originated. And there was no way that I was going to go up to Chico, California, and tell them we're going to try harder. They needed to know that something fundamental had changed at PG&E, that we were going to take action that seemed unimaginable. And that was our moonshot day. We just took a really hard stand that we're going to bury these power lines, and our customers in those areas were so relieved. There's a lot of, since then, we've been able to bury over 900 of the 10,000 miles, more than we had ever done before. And we're still, obviously, we're on our journey. And we've, met with some resistance. Some people think it's too expensive, when in fact, what they don't understand is these extreme weather conditions are what's expensive. The fires, we just have to look at LA. That's expensive. That's a priceless, horrible incident that has to be eliminated through infrastructure for purpose. And so we are just very resolved. And one little tidbit, for any of you who have friends or family in California who are concerned about their power bill, they might be thinking that their bills have gone up because of undergrounding, and that is not true. It's about $1 a month in the average customer's bill for undergrounding, but $20 a month for vegetation management, cutting down trees. The trees that people love, their beloved trees, is $20 a month in every PG&E customer's bill. We have to invest in infrastructure that is more affordable for the long haul, and that's our job, and we have to help make that case and help other people enroll in our big idea.
Well, this is incredible, because you also speak to the hidden costs. I understand PG&E spends more than $1 billion cutting down trees and taking care of all that, and it is a matter of communicating to people that indeed the net value of this is going to be much better.
Trillions of dollars, literally
Exactly.
trillions of dollars of savings
Right.
over the life of these assets, and we get to save the trees. It's just rethinking. You just have to rethink what has always been true, and that's the role of a leader, to challenge people to imagine things that were not true before to be true. And then we just took a stand, and we're just like standing in the pocket, as we like to say. We're just going to really make this happen.
Patti, we've been following that development here at Purdue, with a lot of interest to see, and we're just really proud of what you've been able to do there. It's really exciting.
Well, we're not done yet.
You've got 90,000 miles more to go after that 10,000, right? So you've got a way to go. But you did mention Los Angeles and the tragedy that has happened recently in Los Angeles. Actually, many of our community here have been affected because they've had family in Los Angeles as well. Now, I understand that Pacific Gas and Electric, A, does not operate there, and then B, perhaps those fires were not related to power lines and transmission lines, so we don't know the full situation yet. But it's a huge tragedy. But even so, when you look at it, are there some lessons learned there that Pacific Gas and Electric is taking to heart for the future?
Absolutely. And, we know that we're on this journey to learn about this hazard called wildfire. I think back to everything California had to learn about earthquake, and what Florida has to learn about hurricane, and what Oklahoma has to learn about tornadoes. Extreme weather conditions, every time there's one of these events, there's an opportunity to learn, to prevent, and as we like to say, make it safe and make it right. And so I think one of the things that is interesting about this particular situation is the what's called ember cast. And in the Pacific Palisades, for example, there was a hiking trail, and the embers in high winds came down off that hill, and there was nothing to be done. And so one of the things that has to be true, and we've taken a stand at PG&E, and we say that kind of in concert with the 10,000 miles, we say catastrophic wildfire shall stop. And we don't say ... because of our equipment or in our service area or ... We know we have such a wealth of knowledge now and understanding about the science of fire and the meteorology of fire that we have to share that with the world. And I think one of the things that we're going to have to do in California is demand building codes and implement building codes that make our communities defensible. And there's all sorts of evidence that shows when you have a defensible home with the right conditions, and some of them are quite simple. It's 5 feet of clearance of vegetation around the foundation of the home, no wooden fences making contact, making sure ideally your roof is not a flammable material. These things can be done to harden our homes and our communities and make them safe. And electrical equipment shouldn't spark, and we should have fast response. One of the interesting things, we've done 2 things that are sort of simple and quite amazing. One is we use AI-enabled cameras on our weather stations across our service area, so we have visibility of our entire service area, and our AI-enabled cameras can spot an ignition. They know the difference between fog and smoke. They know the difference between a barbecue and a real ignition. And they are automatically notifying first responders to respond. And the CAL FIRE chief that's our California Fire Force, was reporting out to the legislature, and he shared there were 200 occasions on which those cameras were their first notification of the fire. And in 9 cases, they never received a 911 call. It's such a simple thing. Like, it seems so obvious. The technology is terrific. It helps get first responders there. That combined with the fact that we've hired 100 former firefighters and 30 former fire chiefs at PG&E to help us improve our situational awareness. So we know, and we do this incredible fire spread modeling. We use a tool called TechnoSilva and Palantir's Foundry. We use a huge data engine. So our weather stations are real-time collecting all this data, and it's analyzing it. We know the risk in real time. And we've done all this modeling to know every single one of our poles, which one, if there were an ignition, would have the highest risk. So that's where we know to bury the lines first. We know that we monitor those poles with our cameras and all of our systems real time all the time. Our former firefighters can get to those spots and prevent further ignitions. They'll use retardant ahead of a fire. Like, it's an incredible fire science machine, all in pursuit of this overarching stand that catastrophic wildfire shall stop. I can't tell you, taking a stand like that is such a galvanizing action as a leader. And I would want everyone, the whole Purdue team, to know that you can believe in the things that are not true today, that you are going to work to cause them to be true. And when you take that stand, you cannot waffle, you cannot wiggle, you can't get scared. You just stay in the pocket, like we say, and you can cause extraordinary outcomes. And that's really what we're up to at PG&E.
Breakthrough thinking.
Yeah,
that's a great example. No, that's fantastic. Patti, let's talk a little bit about Purdue University and Indiana. In the last few years, we've had a huge amount of companies that have opened up data centers here in Indiana. We've had Google, we've had Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, right? And these data centers are taking up huge amounts of electricity. In fact, 300 megawatt data center, like I was doing a comparison, how much is that? And for all of you out there, that's about the amount of energy needed by Fort Wayne, by all the homes in Fort Wayne, for example, the second largest city in Indiana. So great news, but there's going to be a increasing demand for energy. In the meantime, as you well know, last year, SK Hynix, which is the number 2 manufacturer of memory globally, announced an initial $4 billion investment here to create not only a production facility but also an R&D facility for nothing less than high bandwidth memory chips, which are needed for the AI processors that will probably make it to those data centers. You know, so I think there's no doubt that today Purdue and Indiana has become the beating heart of what is being called the Silicon Heartland, right?
Nice.
And that is something really exciting. And Purdue undoubtedly today is America's leading semiconductor university, you know, for sure. All this is great news, but here is one state out of many, and we can already see the contours of the demand for electricity, you know, rising up. And when you look across the country, it seems to be remarkable. In fact, I think it was in an interview you did with Elon Musk that the number 3x came up.
It did.
3x, that the grid capacity in the United States needs to go up 3x in the coming decade. So, two-part question. Is that number right? And if it is, oh my goodness, what a challenge. And, you know, if you could share with us, from your point of view, using the breakthrough thinking idea, like, what's it going to take for us to deal? It is a challenge. We have to deal with it. How are we
It's a
gonna deal
great
with it?
challenge. It's a great opportunity. And, you know, I think Elon might have undercalled it for the first time in his life.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Undercalled
it's possible. You know, but actually, the news this week about the processing, maybe it will become more energy efficient, and they'll find ways to be more and more energy efficient. But there's no doubt that this processing of data and ideas in an AI-enabled way is going to unlock so much potential that there will be more and more demand for it. You know, Satya Nadella always inspires me, and I wish I could remember his quote from this week, but he said, "It's good that somebody figured out how to do it faster because it just gives us more appetite for it." And I think he's right. The AI is going to really enable incredible progress in problem solving and amazing solutions to things that we couldn't do by ourselves. But all that to say, I think it's the best thing that's ever happened to the grid. We have a grid that needs infrastructure investment, both because it's reaching its natural age. You know, our grid, you know, really was initially built in the 30s and 40s, and then our rural communities, you know, were electrified. And it's time for rebuilding, and without new uses of electricity, it was just going to cost 3x. If you're going to triple the size, you're going to pay 3 times. And I don't think any of us likes that idea. And so this opportunity, we have some analysis that we've done that we can add a gigawatt, which is 1,000 megawatts, so a gigawatt of new data center load. And when positioned in the right places and with the right strategy to leverage existing assets, we can actually receive more new revenue from that data center than it costs to actually serve that load. So net, our customers' bills can go down 1% to 3% for every gigawatt of data center that I add. Now, there's a limit to that equation, but we have excess capacity in our grid in California because of the massive amounts of renewable energy we have in midday. The battery systems that we've added 12 gigawatts of batteries at scale on the grid in California that matches that renewable generation. So we now are utilizing our grid only about 45%. So we really surprised the tech companies who we serve. They're all in my service area. When we shared with them that we do have capacity, we can help them build.
You can meet demand.
We can meet their demands and lower the rest of my customers' bills. Which, trust me, the folks in California would love to hear me say I'm going to lower their bill because they've been waiting for that. And so we're excited about that. And then I would offer that the other even better thing to happen to the grid is electric vehicles. So electric transportation is the first load that's dynamic, that can happen when you want it to. So when it gets dark, you turn the lights on. When it's a hot day, the air conditioners turn on. We have been, as a grid, energy takers, energy demand takers. Now we can be energy demand optimizers. And so, like a good Purdue industrial engineer, I see this massive opportunity to optimize the grid. It's going to be digital and smart and utilize the computing power and probably AI it's like almost perpetual motion. that we're going to be able to optimize how energy is utilized on the grid. And so electric vehicles are particularly beneficial because they're so dynamic. Combined with other peak resources, we can really transform the utilization of the grid, therefore lowering the unit cost of energy. And one of the most surprising statistics that I love to share is that we show that we can reduce our carbon emissions by 70%, and at the same time reduce household spend on energy 20 to 30%. There's so many people who live in this world that to be decarbonized will inherently be more expensive. I do not believe that. We've done the analysis. That does not have to be true, but you do have to do it in a different way. You can't do it, if we do it the way we always did it, then yeah, the cost is going to go up. But if we use technology, supercomputing, AI, and a digitized grid, we can actually lower the cost of every household's energy spend while we're decarbonizing the economy.
Well, that deserves a round of applause. It
Yeah,
really does.
I know. I love that. That's why I get up every day. You know, it's like, okay, let's go make that happen.
That's an exciting vision, Patti. Now, you're here also because we have an event going on. It's called the Grid of Tomorrow. We're trying to build a consortium here, and many industry members are here with us today, joining us for the event. As you look at this challenge, you know, 3x plus growth in capacity, sustainability, decarbonization goals, et cetera, what advantages do you see that a consortium model could have in dealing with this challenge at a national level, and what role do you think Purdue University can play in this? You know, so many young, talented engineers and Purdue students, STEM students are here. Like, what can we do?
Well, first of
together?
all, you're at the perfect place. This is the perfect place, you know, the heartbeat of America. And I think Purdue has some unique characteristics that when you aggregate them, creates more value than the individual parts. So the sum is greater than the parts. So certainly a world-class industrial engineering school. I think we've established that. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to take these guys everywhere I go. Yeah. We also have one of the original power engineering programs,
yes.
premier power engineering
there
program.
You go.
There we go. We got some of those. That's right. And combined with now this new relationship with the home of the silicon, manufacturing and the chips, I think that's very interesting. So the artificial intelligence, the data and the analytics that can optimize the grid, which again is the big breakthrough. The grid today is not very smart. You know, it's a pretty dumb system. It's got big conductor and it takes big stuff and steps it down and then steps it down in it's been the same. I tell people all the time, if I took Thomas Edison for a walk with me, he'd recognize most of the stuff, you know, like, I can't wait to surprise him. I need 10 more years, then I'm going to really freak him out. But, you know, we have the opportunity to really digitize, and as we're rebuilding this grid, we build it smarter, better, and Purdue is so uniquely positioned. And then you layer in cybersecurity and national security, and how important that will be in building this grid of the future. You know, I just think the incredible world-class engineering program here at Purdue is the perfect home for the massive innovations that are required to have this grid of tomorrow and this vision that I shared about decarbonizing the economy at a lower societal cost. That can absolutely be born here at Purdue, and I'm so grateful for Purdue's willingness, and Dean, your willingness to convene the consortium today. I think we're just getting started.
We're just getting started indeed. No, this is really exciting. Patti, I just wanted to, I noticed that there are not many people who have been CEOs at two major corporations. You've had that chance, and you are one out of only 52 women CEOs amongst the Fortune 500 companies today. And your tenure as CEO in both those companies has been absolutely exceptional, right? So Forbes came out with this article calling PG&E, rising like a phoenix from the ashes. And I understand your contract has been renewed to 2031.
Yes.
You got to tell me how that happened, because I have to convince the president of Provost to do the same for me or something like that.
I'll give you some tips.
So, this is incredible success of the corporate ladder, but what are some lessons you might have for our students in the audience about what it takes to get there from the different identities that you embrace, right? You know, as an engineer, as a woman from the Midwest, right? How does it all come together? The second part of the question is, if there are any students out there wondering, why become a CEO?
Well, maybe I should start with the second one first. You know, I think the elements, I think I can actually answer both of these questions in one way. That for each of us, I think we have a unique set of gifts, talents, desires, and there is no one right answer, but I think I long ago subscribed to a Japanese philosophy called Ikigai. And I share it with you all today because I think it unlocks something unique and special for each individual. And some of you may end up with what I describe as CEO's the answer. For someone else, it will be something else entirely. Because the philosophy works like this. There are 4 attributes to live, to have a purposeful and complete life in your career. So first is to get paid. And that seems obvious. But a lot of people stop there. And so students in the house, it is not about the pursuit of the highest paying offer. You will ultimately be dissatisfied. In fact, I was at a college graduation party for my niece, and not a Purdue student. And her boyfriend was, at the keg, and he had a new job, a good job that he had gotten. And I said, "Are you excited about your new job?" And he said, "Not really." I was like, "What?" He goes, "That's just a means to an end. I get the job so I can have the life I want." I was like, "Well, what if you love the job and you could have, joy outside of work and inside of work?" He's like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." And I said, "Hey, Caitlin, he is not the one." Happy to report they're not dating anymore. Hallelujah. That would have been a miserable life. Do not stop at the pay is the point. And so the 4 characteristics of this Ikigai are: get paid for what you do, but do what you're good at. Do what you love, which might be different than what you're good at, but they match, they come together. And most importantly, do something the world needs. And for me, being a CEO was never the end game. That was not what I set out to pursue. I think in my early career, I set out to be a plant manager at General Motors. I thought that would be the biggest dream job of my entire life. The problem was I got there too fast, and I had to come up with a second dream. And so what I found is that yes, I wanted to give it paid, but more importantly, I was pretty good at leading people. I was good at solving problems, thanks to my Purdue engineering degree. I loved to solve the hardest problems with people and help people win and lead them to achieve things they never thought they could achieve. That's one of my favorite things to do. And so the combination of my engineering skills and my leadership skills, and then to work in the energy industry when the world, more than any other time in history, needs us, to maybe short of the time when electricity was being distributed for the first time, the idea that we can save our planet, like the fact that I actually get to work on that for real every day, is such a miracle. Like, I'm living the greatest life I could imagine. And many of my colleagues at PG&E and across the nation working on this problem are experiencing the same sense of fulfillment, because we're doing what we like, we're doing what we love, or we're doing what we're good at, we're doing what we love, and we're really making a big difference in the world.
Indeed, indeed. That is really inspiring. Thank you. Patti, as Dean of Engineering, I'd be remiss in not asking you about how your experience here at Purdue was when you got your bachelor's degree, master's degree in industrial engineering, and then your participation in the student clubs. And we have many students here who are active in student clubs who are joining us today. You were at SWE, you were doing many other things. Can you take us back to your time at Purdue those years ago, and let us know, how did that experience shape you to become the leader you are today?
Well, first of all, I had a great time at Purdue. I didn't have as great a time as some other people. Like, I had to study. So I did work hard.
We make sure of that
Yeah.
at Purdue Engineering,
We
for
do know.
sure.
But, it's funny. I remember when I started the master's program in industrial engineering here, I knew that I came to terms with the idea that I must not be dumb. Like, I'm not dumb because I survived Purdue Engineering School, and I would maybe put it in the category of surviving. I too got a 35% on my physics 201 exam, and passed, which was shocking. But you understand the curve, I know.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord for the curve. So I survived engineering school, so I must not be dumb. So after I got my master's degree, and I could say to myself, all right, I have a Purdue bachelor's degree in engineering and a master's degree in engineering, and I would show up at a factory and not understand something, I knew it wasn't because I was dumb. It was because I hadn't learned that yet. And I remember walking out of the plant one night with my supervisor. I was, maybe a year into the engineering job. And he said, you know what, Patty, you know what I appreciate about you? He's like, you ask questions. He said, there's a lot of young engineers who come in thinking they have the answers, like we hired them because they know everything. Mm-hmm. But actually, they hire you because you have the capacity to learn everything. And having the confidence that I didn't have to have all the answers, that it was okay for me to say I do not know, it was okay for me to be curious, really became pretty powerful throughout my career. And curious is one of our virtues at PG&E. And in fact, it's our virtue of the year. This year, we're focused in on being curious and learning, because we should never stop learning. Mm-hmm. And we should never stop imagining things that aren't true today that could be true. And I think for me in my career, that Purdue confidence, the grounding, first of all, in that problem-solving methodology, plus the confidence that I could learn even when it was hard, gave me confidence to take hard jobs, gave me confidence to take on things I didn't understand. I remember, here's a funny story that's just coming to mind. I was running the body shop at Detroit Hamtramck Assembly Plant. Gosh, I must have been, 25 years old or something, 26. And I was maybe 2 weeks into the job. And I really didn't know anything about this department, and it was a big department. Bunch of robots, bunch of people. We welded sheet metal together to make cars, and we had a really big problem one night. And I huddled the guys up, and I'm like, okay, guys, what are we going to do? Like, we got a big problem. And they looked at me, and they're like, well, you're the boss. Aren't you supposed to tell us? And I was like, you want me to? And they're like, oh, actually, no, because we know you don't know anything. I said, I don't know what to do. What do you want to do? And one of them said, well, last time we had this problem, we did this. And the other guy's like, oh, Stan, that was the worst idea. Remember how badly that went? We have to try it this way. And so blah, blah, blah. We come up with a plan, and, we survived to fight another day. And my lesson from that was, as a leader, what a blessing to not have the answer. Because then your team can grow and learn and contribute and have the joy of coming up with the winning idea this time. And I actually have, from that time, leaned into that. And so I think a lot of that comes back to my time at Purdue and just getting such a firm foundation and curiosity and confidence that you can learn anything. You can tackle anything. If you can survive Purdue engineering, you can do just about anything else.
Well, you heard it right here.
Yeah,
you heard it right here.
Right.
I know there's many students here who would like to ask Patty some questions. So I'm going to ask that those who have questions, please start lining up in front of the microphones here. But I do want to go ahead and ask you, a question that, is always interesting when one looks at someone's career, arc. Your most memorable and your least memorable moment in your career?
Oh, boy. Most memorable. Well, I will say, there's probably recency bias here, but That day up in Chico, California, where we
Right.
made a commitment to the people of California that we would take action, that we were done apologizing. I feel like we took the wheel back and made a commitment we could keep. And I felt like I was going to dedicate my life to it, and I knew my 28,000 coworkers and 15,000 contractors who are on our system every day would take that stand with me, that we could live up to the expectations of California. That was a pretty memorable day. I don't know I don't remember my least memorable.
Exactly, that's the trick question.
That's the point, I guess.
But that is the point. No,
Yeah.
that's great. Well, anyone want to go ahead and start asking questions, please?
Patti, thank you so much for giving such an interesting lecture. It's been great. I'm also interested a lot in energy, and the way you're thinking about it is very inspiring. So you're not just a leader, and I assume a lot of leaders have some special skills that are not just physical, that they know how to do something. And it's more about how you deal with people, how you organize teams, how you assemble those teams together, how you combine people's talents. Yeah. So could you tell more how did you learn all of that? And maybe you have like a secret recipe of assembling a good team, and just maybe you could tell more about that?
Yeah, obviously putting together a great team is really important. I've studied and I have a point of view about what are the factors that make a team environment most likely to deliver a breakthrough outcome. And there's several factors, there's 5 factors, but one is affinity, that the team has to actually like each other. So sometimes when you're in a technical challenge, you focus only on the technical challenge and you forget about the human to human part of we need to actually know each other, get to know each other. We have this really interesting little exercise we do called the river, where each member of the team will stand up and draw a river and put the key kind of ebbs and flows of their life on this river. I mean, it has really nothing to do with water or anything like that, but it's just like, here's the story of my life, and we listen intently to one another tell their stories, and you're forever closer after this moment. So actually, as a leader of a technical team with a big, hairy challenge, to spend time on the affinity can often feel like a luxury, but it's such an accelerant to performance. So I would just offer, that's one of the key attributes of putting together a great team, investing in helping people becoming friends. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there, Patti. Thanks so much for coming and speaking to all of us today. Sort of a 2-part question. One being, backwards looking, your career is incredible, right? Different places you've been, different things you've done, stellar. But forward looking, I'm sure maybe it didn't always feel that way or didn't look that way. I'm curious to hear about your biggest failure, whether it be in university, grad school, or even in your career. And then I'm also curious, just as a last semester senior, what are your big regrets when you were in school that you didn't get to do as you really wanted to? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I will say I do have one big regret. I graduated undergrad in 3.5 years, and I regret not having that last semester. Now, my parents were paying the tab, so that was the way it was. But I did not have probably as much fun as I could have. So I think there's definitely the Purdue experience. Be sure to give yourself a little time to breathe. I think each disappointment that I had, and there were many at different stages, all ended up being the right outcome and the right choice. And I think the most important thing was having this understanding of what I was good at and what I loved, and what the world needed. Once I got my mind centered around that, it made it much easier to make decisions about what's the right choice, what's the right calling, what answer do I take, or what call do I take. So, for example, taking the PG&E job, I really thought I was in my final role as CEO of CMS Energy. It was in my hometown. My dad retired from Consumers Energy, where I was CEO. He lived 2 doors down. My sister lived next door. I was in my hometown. I felt like I had won the lotto, you know. I had everything I could have ever imagined for my life and was pretty sure I was done, like that was good. And this call kept coming about PG&E, and my husband and I really had to come to terms with the call, that it was needed. And there were definitely in that first year days where I thought, and Joe Bentley, who's my head of electric engineering, who I talked to come with me, he and I both had days where it was like, whoa, this is harder than we thought, you know? And I guess I'll tell you one quick story, long answer to your question, but one great piece of advice I got. I have a 4-star admiral on my board of directors. And I was probably 6 months in. I think the Dixie Fire had started, and it was very devastating. And I was realizing the true hazard of our equipment and the risk of wildfire and the actual toll on human life. And it was pretty overwhelming. And I thought to myself, this is like a military thing. This isn't a job. Like, what in the world? And I thought, oh, Mark will know. So I called the Admiral up on a Saturday, and I said, okay, Admiral, you got to explain this death and destruction thing to me. Like, how am I supposed to think about this? And he said, oh, Patti, I should have given you this talk right away. I'm so sorry. I give it to all my young commanders. I'm like, okay, I'm not young anymore, but I'll take the talk, whatever you got. And he said 2 really important things. He said, number one, you have to ask yourself, is it safer because you are there? Are you actually making it different? And I knew we were. That was clear, but we weren't perfect, and so that's what was so scary. And he said, look, real leaders thrive in that environment. If you know you're making it better, you stay the course. He said, now the second thing to know, every great military victory in history, and he said, and I have studied them all, and I believe him, he said, was one for two, had 2 commonalities. Number one, it had setbacks. Every great military victory in history had setbacks. And 2, they had a leader who refused to give up. I was like, okay. I can't tell you what a weight that took off. I was like, okay, here's my job. Don't give up. So we don't give up, do we, Joe?
There you go.
We don't give up.
Round of applause. That's great.
Hello, Ms. Poppi. Thank you for giving us this speech today. My name is Margolan, and I'm a student from Kazakhstan, so kind of far away from here. A country which has a Soviet-era electric grid. And you mentioned how the US also has an old grid. And my question is, what challenges, technical and not, come with replacing those old grids with the new ones? And how do you approach these challenges?
Yeah, that is a great question. I think, you know, first let me say for the record, old is not necessarily bad, but new, technically enabled, is really better. And so how we think about that is certainly we have to prioritize risk first. And so the wildfire risk that we face in California is different than the risks I faced in Michigan. And so we have a real deep understanding of our assets, our conditions, the risks, and we approach it by trying to figure out how can we transform it, rebuild it better for less. And so the for less is hard. Anyone could build it better, just build bigger stuff. And so this is where the digitization of the grid is so important, and why using whole new ways of thinking about optimizing supply and demand. Let me give you one example. There was a new housing development going in. So it's not the same as replacing a grid, but we had to integrate this new housing development. I think there were 400 homes being built. And it was going to be an all-electric neighborhood and development. And so every household was going to get a 400 amp panel so that they could have a car, electric heat pumps, full electric installations. 400 amp panel is a big panel. Most houses have a 100 amp panel. We were going to have to build the grid to serve a 400 amp panel at every one of those houses. And so instead, a technology company came in, and through optimization of energy usage in each and every household, we could get the amperage of the panels to 200 amps. that saved us 50% in the capacity of all of this. And when I say the capacity, I mean the power generation resources, the substation resources, the conductor, the poles. The entire system would have been twice as big for this one development if we hadn't leveraged technology to optimize how the energy could be used in this modern development. And so as we rebuild existing infrastructure, we get to reimagine it and build it in a way that it's lower cost for everyone. And that's our great challenge. Safer, more reliable, and more affordable. We're standing for all three of those things.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
I know there are more questions there. Just keep coming. We got a little more time for a couple of more questions.
Hi, my name is Megna Iyer, and I'm a junior in ME. I was wondering what 2 roles in the past prepared you for the role you're in today, and like what skills you gained.
That's a great question. I do think my years in operation, and maybe even I was like a production superintendent at this auto factory. I think I learned a lot in those years about, as a young person, getting to lead a group of people. We had daily deliverables. I learned about lean. I had an opportunity to travel the world as part of one of those roles and come back and implement lean manufacturing inside an auto plant. And so that ended up being very consequential for me throughout my career, especially when I switched to energy, where we hadn't really deployed lean operating tools. And the idea that you can have higher quality work at a lower cost is sort of, I think I'm a bit of a disruptor in our sector, because I bring this mindset that you can have a higher reliability grid at a lower cost. That's not normal, I think. I think a lot of our engineers think if you want it to be more reliable, you have to pay more, like you have to spend more. And so you give me more budget, I'll give you more reliability. We have to really use that lean thinking in our execution of our work. So I think that was pretty consequential. And I think being CEO at CMS Energy and being able to transform our customer satisfaction from literally worst to first, going through that whole process, that took about 10 years. And I learned so much about what drives customer satisfaction. I got to actually do the work so that when I came to PG&E, I recognized the problems. I used to wonder, as a young person, how does a CEO know what to do? Like, how do you know what to do? And when I decided to take the call at PG&E, I knew what to do. I had had the privilege of leading this amazing company who my predecessor had actually transformed it. And so I got to watch him really make the company great. And then I got to work alongside him and then be CEO myself for 5 years. And to have that experience just prepared me for this role so that I could come on day one and have a plan. We were in an emergent crisis. My entire leadership team, where all the positions were vacant, except for my attorney, thank God, he stayed. And I had to hire an entirely new leadership team. Of course, I picked a Boilermaker, and needed to get going on day one. And I knew what to do. And now I'm happily in the process, 4 years in, of transferring that duty and responsibility to my leaders and allowing them to then call the next play. I don't have to call every play anymore. I've got this incredible team who's delivering extraordinary outcomes. They've enrolled in our playbook. We've got a way that we operate and a culture that we've created that now I get to watch the fruits of that through this leadership team that we've built together.
That is incredible. I will note that Patti has just a few more minutes before she's headed to the airport, but I think we have time for one, maybe two,
one question,
maybe one
and then
question.
I have one request of the crowd.
Of course.
Okay, so we'll do one question,
There you go,
and then
there you go.
I'll
Yeah.
have a closing
Yeah.
request for the crowd.
Hello, Patti. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. It's been quite inspiring, and I think it speaks wonders about your leadership based on all the achievements that you've done at PG&E. And I just wanted to ask, given that your company is very forward-looking, you've talked a lot about AI and big data and all these things, I wanted to ask what you see the global energy mix looking like 50 years from now.
Oh, geez.
And how is your company preparing for that kind of future?
Yeah. But it's funny that you asked that question, because we have to think in 50 years. Like we think about our assets as 50-year assets. And so we actually do, I mean, we don't have 50-year plans, I can say that. But we do think about, this is every asset that we install, we realize is a 50-year decision. So we think very hard about that. I do think that we will have a decarbonized energy system. I do think nuclear plays a very major role in that. It's really interesting because I was at a meeting this last summer, and a woman who represents the global nuclear energy industry sat on the stage, and she was naming off all of the countries in the world. Basically, she named every country in the world that was building large nuclear power reactors. And of course, but us, you know. Georgia, we just finally finished the Vogtle site. Southern Company, God bless them, had the tenacity when no one else would take the challenge. They did. And America should be very thankful that those units were built. I know there's a lot of talk about small modular reactors, and I think they will be an interesting piece, particularly in nations that don't have the power demand, you know, that we have. I think large nuclear reactors will be built again in America. We're going to have to get our sea legs back and realize that this nuclear industry of ours is extraordinarily effective. At PG&E, we own and operate Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant, and it's one of the most extraordinary operations I've ever witnessed. I feel like as a student of operations my entire life, it is a privilege to lead that team. I learn from them every single time I visit them. Our nuclear industry has standards, has follow-through, has a challenging, questioning attitude. They embody curiosity and a willingness to challenge their own facts. It's a most extraordinary culture. If you ever had an opportunity to work in a nuclear power plant, you should jump at the chance. But I do think nuclear will be a very important backbone, combined with renewable energies and really optimizing our hydro systems. We, in 2023, PG&E delivered 100% GHG-free energy to the customers that we serve. It's absolutely possible. Don't be dismayed when you hear people say that we can't live without fossil fuels. There's a bridge, there's a period of time here where natural gas will be very important, but we can get to a place where we either capture the carbon from natural gas as a power resource or really lean into a digitized, optimized grid that we actually build less stuff to serve growing demand. Okay, my request?
Your question?
Okay,
yeah.
So one of the things, when you asked me about my Purdue experience, I didn't mention, but I should have. In addition to being very active in Society of Women Engineers, which I loved, I was a member of the Delta Gamma sorority. And my sorority sisters and I are still dear friends. So I tell you students who are here tonight, you know, these people that you're in school with, that you're surviving these years with, they can be, if you so choose, friends for life. And so every Wednesday, we videotape little videos to each other. Wherever we are, we say, hey, and we call them Waffle Wednesdays. Do not ask why. And so I say, hey, it's Waffle Wednesday. Well, it's not Wednesday. But here's what I would love to do. I'd love to videotape all of you saying, Happy Waffle Wednesday, boiler up. Because they're all boiler makers, these girls.
Right.
And they will be very impressed that I managed to get you to help me with this. So I think I need everyone to stand on your feet.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this selfie style. We're going to say, on the count of 3, we're going to say, Happy Waffle Wednesday, boiler up. Okay, let's practice. Let's just practice one time. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Happy Waffle Wednesday, boiler up. Okay, you got it? All right, we're going to do this. Please, Dean, will you please? You have to come with me. We're going to do this selfie style. All right. On the count of 3, we're going to do it. 1, 2, 3. Happy Waffle Wednesday, boiler up. Oh, they're going to love that. Thank you, team.
Patti, Poppi,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.